Trauma is an extremely challenging topic to capture because people experience it differently. It is said that the body keeps count. It keeps count on what happened to you yesterday and how you coped with it, what's happening to you today, and potentially what you're scared of what will happen to you tomorrow. And therefore, trauma is about the impact. And what we don't realize is that even the things that happened to us years ago left an invisible print in our lives. And that the things that we are dealing with today are determined by that silent or loud voice of trauma that we moved forward with, and that we are sitting here with in anticipation of what we may be experiencing again in the near future. And the sad thing is that if you don't identify those silent triggers, that impact, and that new normal that the trauma has created for us, we start to make decisions based on what we see in life today without recognizing that those are foundations of those traumatic experiences that we dealt with but did not resolve. We did not identify solidly. We did not own what needs to be owned, and we did not dismiss what does not belong to us or what do not define us. And therefore, trauma can be one gigantic thing that is known to you based on the significance of its impact on you, or a few cumulated things that come together to knock you down and render you hopeless and unable to see the ability in you or to see the hope and gratitude in the future that you aim to achieve. One of the most effective ways to resolve trauma and to start to overcome and empower yourself is a process known psychologically as integration. And what that means is that you have to sit with that trauma. You have to unpick it and really determine the impact that it has on you. You have to rationalize it and see what is practical and what is imagined. And that new fear and anxiety and feelings of unsafety or low self-worth are coming from that experience and the impact that it had on you, but do not define the future and the reality and your abilities. Because the truth is that when you experience trauma, it takes you out of your regular body and mind experience. And it places you in a foreign environment where you have to learn the new normal in that environment in terms of your general feelings of safety that you may have taken for granted, in terms of your ability and your skills in how you thought that you could navigate that route or that issue, in terms of the trust that you have in people or the environment or that specific thing that ended tragically. You have to experience a new normal that you must be able to create for yourself. Because the thing is that trauma has registered feelings of fear and anxiety and inability around that thing that are now defining you and your circumstances every time you embark on a similar situation. And by integrating, you're sitting with yourself and actually owning that incident, but also distancing yourself from it. You're rationalizing every aspect of that incident and stating to yourself that yes, the car did crash, but it was circumstances around the weather, around the person that came upon me, around the state of my car, around how tired or alert I was that day, and everything else that does not determine the rest of my life as a driver or a road user. And that's the only way you can start to put that anxiety to bed and carry on functioning in a circumstance or environment that includes that thing or person without letting it break you down. Say, for instance, you were in a relationship that ended tragically, like the runaway bride kind of thing. And then you start to feel bad about yourself and feel low and mistrust everyone else in your life because You think that everything else will end in the same way. Or you think that you're not worthy of that level of emotional connection that you thought you had with that person. But if you actually sit with that thing and explore it and reflect upon it, you will start to recognize the cracks that you ignored. You will start to see that that runaway did not come from nowhere and that it's not all about you. And even if you sit with that thing and own the things that came from you, you will be able to do them differently and allow yourself to go into that new relationship knowing that you can adjust these things, but you're still fully worthy of that attention and affection from the other person that you meet in the future, as opposed to shutting down and locking yourself away because you think that by being vulnerable again will lead you to exactly the same circumstances. So integration is really your ability to not just look at that situation as a massive, impactful giant in your life, but to break it down into pieces of understandable data that you can deal with. Because if you're terrified to go out into the dark or to even go into society because of anxiety that something has created on you, your ability to unpick it and really integrate it will give you that clarity and that strength to move on in life. Some of the ways that you can identify whether your trauma is showing up in your present life is if you're hyper vigilant. When you are going into a situation or an experience and you're acutely vigilant about what may go wrong in those situations, then it's a past trauma, whether it happened to you or on a secondary basis that it happened to people that you know. And even sometimes we inherit traumatic experiences from movies that we watch, and we start to look out for those things in our own lives. When you feel hyper vigilant, you start to see the mistakes. You start to see those things that you're scared and anticipating because of your level of vigilance around that thing. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because those things will manifest. If you are a germophobic, you will start to see germs everywhere because you're looking acutely. And it is evident that you're going to see a creepy crawly or a dirt or a stain or something that will manifest and fulfill that worry that you had that this thing is infected. And that's how hypervigilance exists in your life. And it starts to take over everything because when you're hypervigilant, you're anxious. You're anxious when you recognize that these mistakes happen. They exist. Risk exists. Disappointment exists. Because of course it does. It does at a normal level. But when you've been hurt and injured, that hypervigilance magnifies it and endorses that fear and worry and anxiety and sends you further into that crisis and trauma impact. It then starts to affect your sleep, your peace and calm. And if you think about it, you will struggle to have a happy, gratitude-filled life when you're stressed and anxious and pointing out and identifying all those mistakes in life. So when you think about it, that level of conscious hypervigilance will just manifest a lifetime of evidence-based risk, evidence-based mistakes, mistrust, inability in yourself, and every other thing that created that initial trauma and impact in you that you're watching out for, because you haven't sat with yourself and dissected that issue in a way that integrated it properly. Hypervigilance then starts to take on a life of its own around that issue that is already traumatizing you. Trauma is a silent thief. A silent thief when you think that you overcame it and you step into your best life and you find that it's still dragging you down. It's very easy for you to seek help for a major car crash or a major war or tragedy because it's sitting there in your face for you to acknowledge and deal with. But for a lot of us, we deal with those things silently. We overcome them and we step over those hurdles and we carry on thinking that they are in the past, but they go with us. They leave their scars, visible or not, and they drag us down in the form of health, mind, feelings of worth, relationships, and how we connect, how vulnerable we are, how tolerant we remain. And sometimes a little future thing knocks you down because it's only the last straw that breaks the camel's back. The back of the camel that has already been cracked by trauma after trauma, an issue after issue that we kept on walking from, that we stepped and jumped over but didn't give ourselves the full recovery time. We did not sit down to integrate, to acknowledge that this thing slapped us flat in the face. The way you build your values, your boundaries, your relationships, the way you go on your dreams without apology and without hesitation, the way you believe in your ability to reach those things and the existence of that high value that you need to claim for your life is based on your experiences. And if that past is something that has broken you, is something that has left you subsistent, then subsistence is what you will harvest for the rest of your life if you don't do something about it. Shadow to spotlight coaching is that evidence that we have massive cracks on our backs from primary experiences of trauma or secondary experiences from what we've seen loved ones cope with. Because whether the narrative is yours or not, it has left a scar. It has left a memory that scares you to embark on the next journey, on the next relationship, on the next brand. And that is something that you have to sit with and address before you can be able to fully function in life, before you can avoid the next straw breaking the back of the camel simply because it's been cracked so badly and not properly healed. So if integration is one of those big resolutions to trauma, how do you learn? How do you integrate? The first thing that you need to be able to do to integrate is being able to manage your emotions, being able to stay calm, whether you're breathing or practicing any other method like prayer and mantra and affirmations and things that help to calm you down and to distress you so that you can be at a level emotional platform to be able to rationally think and consciously unpick those things that are happening to you. The other thing that you should be able to do to integrate is self-care. Love yourself, look after yourself, do things that you enjoy. Sometimes people overcomfort during a crisis, and that's okay because you need to connect with yourself sometimes. And at that point, the evil of weight and the evil of other health implications are not as bad because you want to inject some love into your life, some happiness, some emotion, some feeling, so that you can be boosted enough to deal with that issue. And then when you're strong enough, you can deal with those other things. Introduce new hobbies to your life. New hobbies will not only give you positive emotions, but will also introduce daring and outgoing and new things that ended in a positive note so that your mind can let go of that anxiety and that protective instinct that is holding you back by the belief that if you step out, more bad things will happen to you. So think about things that will give you positive experiences, but that are less risky, so that you can have that boost of confidence and boost of emotion without more risk to scare your brain into isolation. And once you start to have those experiences, the confidence will grow back in your ability to protect yourself. It will grow in the safety of the world and the fact that there is more pleasure out there. And then you will also start to experience those gratitude moments that your hypervigilance and your trauma and its impact has taken away from you. Because it's really, really difficult to be open and trusting and happy and sharing when you're in that really low, broken place.